Hello, guys. Welcome to She Scores, where we talk all things women's soccer and we look into the numbers within the game. I cannot wait to show you guys today's episode. I realize I have way too many tabs open. Don't know why I have so many tabs open. But I'm so excited for today's episode. We're going to talk about the game, and we are going to kind of look at how each team attacked and defenses, stuff like that. Today's game we are looking at is the North Carolina Courage versus the Houston Dash. North Carolina came away with the win with a 2-1 victory. The Houston Dash got the first goal in the first minute off of Avery Patterson. But I think the North Carolina Courage worked well together to pull off the comeback. So let's look into the numbers. Everyone's favorite part. Share screen. So for starters, we are going to look at here the game. For expected goals, I took the formation part off of this because I did not like it, because it was never giving me the right one. So So for expected goals, you have 2.1 for the Courage and 0.4 for Houston. As yes, I do believe both teams are pretty similar, with a lot of always making a lot of changes. I think it kind of comes down to what kind of changes are we making, and are we making them with purpose, type of thing. I think for the Houston Dash, especially with their ownership, management, all that stuff, I think it could be I think they've had those struggles for a while. I think those are struggles they've always had. I think the Courage just had that more slight advantage that they have the more consistent attackers, whereas Houston doesn't really have that consistent especially attack as well. And not to mention also the North Carolina Courage have a bit more veteran leadership, whereas the Dash don't really they probably have some of it, just not where it's needed most. So for pass correction rate, you have 80.6 to the 72.6 for Houston. Again, I think a lot of this we're just going to show, especially looking into this, the Courage had a bit more control of the game. And then, especially, passing around, getting around with defense. And that kind of shows in the possession as well, with the 52% to Houston's 48%. Again, I think the Courage were in control a lot and working very nicely to get around Houston's defense and, kind of to control the game. Interceptions, you had for the Courage 11, Houston 4. This is where I kind of think it's important to kind of fully look at it, because there's a lot of interceptions on the Courage's side. I think, and where there's less interceptions, I think what people have to realize is Houston, they still lost the game, right, per se. I just think there are a few moments where it's their defense is good, but it's not where it could be when there are multiple occasions of them, one player watching and the defense is caught sleeping. And then they're getting really caught out, so they're not making as many interceptions. Whereas the Courage, I think they're making more interceptions and snipping out the attack. I think it's kind of the way I'm going to look at that. But we're kind of going to look at here how both teams kind of attacked at each other, because I think that's also important to look at. So I have written on this little clipboard here, and I'm doing so much talking, is how each team attacked. So the Courage went out with a 3-4-3, while the Dash stuck with a 4-4-2. So obviously for the Courage, they have 3 center backs. where it kind of frees up a little bit more, freedom to kind of get the ball up, up and I like to say up and out, to kind of get it to their attack, right? And then obviously they had 4 midfielders. They had a left midfielder, 2 center midfielders, and a right midfielder. And this is also where I think it's kind of important, because the right midfielder that they have can drop back and kind of help on the defense, right? They can drop back, kind of act as that right back. Or if you want to technically put it as like a right wing back, right? They can drop back there. And same with their left midfielder, can drop back and act as that left back. And also, you're pretty much, you have your middle covered. The center midfielders may not need to drop back as much because you have 3 center backs hang out there. And also, especially your left center back here can jump in and help. And then your right center back can jump in and help if the right midfielder can't get back there in time. And then you kind of have that one lone center back there. And who's probably calling a lot of the shots in the defense, right? Shots. Don't write like me. I don't know what I'm trying to write. But a lot of how the Courage, especially, if you notice here, especially if you're Houston side, there's this big open gap here on both sides, where it is very easy for a team together. So, look how easy it is for, your right midfielder here. Say you start from a goalkeeper's perspective, you kick it to your center back. Technically, you could probably do any of your center backs. But, yeah, kick it to your center back. And then your center back sits up the right midfielder. Right midfielder goes here, right winger. And what your right winger can do is dribble up and get a good cross off, so that way your striker can pretty much just go in and go, bang, goal type of thing, right? And, be there to finish it off, which I think we saw a little bit. There may have been some, it may have not ended like that, but there were some chances of that. And it's the same thing on the other side, too, where there's big open spaces. And then for the Dash, they're more defensive minded, right? Where it's you're locked up a little bit more defensively. Yes, you have 2 strikers up here, but if you notice, look how many fucking people you got back here, right? You've got left back, center back, right back. And then you have your midfield who can also jump back and help, which I guess I could write that on. I literally flung this cap off earlier. Right, you can have them go. They can jump back. But okay, that's horrible arrow. Back. Right, they can jump back and help. Whereas your strikers, their main goal is to get up here, right? But if you notice how they're more locked up on the defense here, their main goal is to get it to either of these 2, and for their striker to go wee down here. Right, where they're wee, let's get down there. They don't do that. They don't actually say wee. But I just bring a commentary of it. But they're more trying to crowd in the middle there and, beat a lot of the players, defensively, right? Beat the defenders. Dribble past them. I think the Courage were just a bit more successful because there are these, wide open spaces over here, that I think you could just easily get into. Any player can kind of run up to that passing triangle and score. So, yeah. And then we're going to kind of end off this episode with the Venn diagram, right? End it off like so. Nope, not that one. I did that one. Okay, so anyway, for the Dash, there was times they weren't dealing with the wing play. Obviously, as we see in there's that wide open spot. And there were multiple times their defense is caught sleeping. So a lot of their defense, their formation, I think is good for their defense. I think it's just maybe working together as a unit instead of the rest of the defense is they see the ball come in and they're not oh shit. It's more of them just not dealing with it the way it should be dealt with, and it shouldn't just be one player dealing with it, right? For the Courage, they need pressure, a little bit more pressure from their defense. There were a lot of moments where it was like kind of like little like clearances, right? Where it was like, okay, they're like they were just like there wasn't any effort in any of the clearance, and it was like that's what kind of led to their first goal. Was it was just easy for Houston to score. But nice working as a team to get it, to pull off the comeback, and also they had some really nice passes where they were able to get in behind. So like the NC Courage came back to win 2-1 against the Houston Dash. The Dash scored in the first minute of the game, but the Courage had nice teamwork to get the job done and used the Dash's sleepy defense to take advantage, which I think inevitably they did. So yeah, I do hope I want to get this off there first before I start talking. Yeah. So I do hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I'm so excited for some of those things that are coming for She Scores. And also just this podcast in general, I am so excited. But I will see you guys next week with a brand new episode. Peace.